the windshield over it, when you turn it next to the mic, it makes a sound that reminds me of Thomas the Tank Engine. So loads of you asked for a studio rig rundown video going through everything I've got, all my gear, how it's all connected, all my routing, all of that. And this is this video. I thought to myself, this is going to be a really easy video to do, because I can just talk about the routing, you know, film a couple of things and Bob's your uncle, it'll be done. And actually then I started writing notes and I realised I do have gear acquisition syndrome. I've got so much stuff. So if you're interested, stick about for this video. I am going to go through everything. You're going to find out what I use for input output, I/O, how it's all connected, my choice in mixing desks, all of my outboard gear, the patch bays and how I connect to them. And then I'm going to tell you why I did it, what I like about it, what I hate about it, and finally, as a bonus, I'm going to go through a little bit of information about my video setup. But here's 3 small things that I want to talk about first. They'll only take a few seconds. Number 1, submit your multitrack to me. If you've got a song and you want me to mix it on a video, I will do that for you. Send me your multitrack if you're up for that, and I will mix it, film myself mixing it and preparing it and all of that, and make a video out of it, and then you get your mix done for free. A quick question also that I got off my last 2 mix videos is someone said to me, what is a smiley face and why would you give it to the toms? Okay, well, a smiley face, when I say a smiley face, it's an EQ move. So it's basically turning down the mids, turning up the top, turning up the bottom, and giving the EQ curve a smiley face. And it's probably the thing that I do at the end to everything when I bring it out on the desk. I'll give them all a smiley face to some degree, but depending on how the sounds fit together, some will get more of a smiley face and some will get less of a smiley face. And the third thing is, please subscribe, and also please leave comments. Your questions have been amazing. It's really nice in my comments, not the usual sewer that a lot of YouTube channels get. Maybe that's because I haven't got that many subscribers, but let's keep it vibrant in there. I'm really enjoying interacting with everyone that watches the videos. Right. Talking of videos, let's go on with this one. What do I use for input output? Well, I've got these 2 Big 6 desks here. These connect to the computer via USB. And I've also got the RME Digiface, the ADAT interface. And connected to that, I've got a Ferrofish Pulse 16 and an RME 8 IO. And I've also got a Native Instruments, what is it? It's a Complete Audio 6. It basically does my MIDI ins and outs, and I also plug a mic into it sometimes. So if I'm doing a mix session and I need to record another mic that's not part of the studio setup, I use that. And it's also useful if I'm doing something like a Zoom call and I don't want to have my desks on because they do warm the room up. All of these connect as an aggregate device in the Mac. My Mac is an M1 Max MacBook Pro with 64 gigs of RAM, 2TB hard drive, 32 GPU cores, and I've also got a ridiculous amount of external storage in the form of 2 and 4TB SSDs, and I've got loads of 5 to 16TB Rust drives for backup and archive. To go along with the MacBook Pro, I've also got 2 4K BenQ monitors that are plugged in via Thunderbolt. Back to the audio gear. My desks connect together via the summing input on the back of the right desk, so the left-hand desk, which I actually number desk 2, connects to the right-hand desk, which is desk number 1, and that goes in via the summing input on the back of the desk. I used to actually have it going into the 13 and 14 inputs on the desk. That did work quite nicely, because if I wanted to cut the first desk without turning it down on the master fader, I could do it via that a lot easier. But then someone mentioned that I should use the summing input, so then I did, and then I don't know if I regret it or not. So that's still a work in progress, how I connect the 2 desks. But at the moment, they're set up using the summing input on the back, and in theory, you can get as many of these as you want, and you can daisy chain them and build them out as big as you'd like, which is possibly one of my intentions. One note is I'm really impressed with the G-Bus comp that's built into the desk, the onboard bus compressor. It's only got a few options on it. I've said that in previous videos. It's only got threshold makeup, and then you've got either auto or a set very short release on it. I leave it with the short release on and just tickle it, but to glue the whole mix together, that is an excellent feature. So let's talk next about the patch bays, from the bottom patch bays up to the top. So the bottom two patch bays have all the ADAT input output and all the outboard I/O as well. And if you look, I've got all the ADAT outputs at the top, and then underneath I've got all the outboard inputs, and then under that I've got all the outboard outputs, and then under that I've got the ADAT inputs. So without patching in, just using the normalization, I can put in a hardware insert on my computer and the ADAT in and outs, and they will be patched to any of my outboard gear. But then if I want to break that chain and manually patch something in, then I can use patch cables to do that. That's an area of the patch bay that for hardware inserts I never need to touch, which is great. Next up is all the insert points. So if I want to manually patch any of that outboard, I can patch it into the insert points on the desk. For example, I could use inserts on the kick and snare on channels 1 and 2 on the left desk, and I could also put an insert point over the whole of the first desk, which is usually my drums. So yeah, that's just all the insert points. And the final patch bay, the one above, is all the other line inputs and other outputs from the desk. So for example, the effect sends and the master out that goes to my speakers, and all the line ins for the stereo channels, because the big 6 desks have the 4 mono channels with the mic preamps, and then they've also got 4 stereo channels, which gives you 12 mixable channels on each desk with faders. So for example, when I'm connecting my pair of Blueys as a parallel drum compression bus, I will come out of effects 2 on the patch bay, and I will feed that to the input of the Blueys, and then the output of the Blueys will go to the line-ins on either 9 and 10 or 11 and 12 on the left desk as well. Outboard wise, I've got this Midas L10 500 series box, which lots of people online say has noise, and it has no noise whatsoever, not that I've detected. Maybe with units that need a little bit more power, it might generate some noise, or you might end up with problems, but with the setup that I've got, it's absolutely great. So yeah, no problems there. It was cheap enough to buy and try, and if I felt that I needed something better, I would have sent it back and got something better. But to be honest, this has been perfect from day one. And in that 500 series unit, I've got the 2 Bluey compressors by Blackline Audio, copying Chris Lord Alge's famous Bluey compressor that's been his main vocal compressor on all sorts of hits. I actually tend to use them as a parallel drum bus at the moment. I haven't quite found them as good on vocals as I hoped they'd be, but I found them amazing on drums, so that's how I'm using them at the moment. I've also got the 2 E-Dynamics and the 2 E-EQs by SSL, which are basically copies of the 4000E desk dynamics and EQ. And then finally, I've got the stereo UV EQ by SSL, which is incredibly functional. In the racks, which I built myself very badly, I've got 2 of the Blackline Audio 17 2A units. They are fantastic. The Warm Audio 273 EQ preamp, which is also fantastic. I've got an old Drawmer 241, DL241. Let me check that. Yeah, I've got the Drawmer DL241 compressor, which is a hangover from my old studio. I had one of those in there. And they have a certain character about them, so I've got one of those. It was cheap on eBay. It's more of a nostalgia thing than anything else for me. I've also got the BSS DPR 402, which I find particularly nice on overheads. LA Audio TCX2, which at the moment does not work. I need to get that fixed. I've got a very, very small Joe Meek preamp EQ, which, to be honest, hasn't really been used at all. My intention for that was if I was streaming, I could use it as a mic preamp for my talking mic, and actually I've done that all in software, so that's not been used at all. I've got the MIDI Verb 4, mainly because I had it, so I put it in there. I haven't actually used it on anything yet, but it is a cool unit. It's got some features. I'll do a video about that one day, because it's got some stuff in it that I've not really seen in other units, particularly the Leslie simulation, which is not a traditional Leslie simulation, but we'll come to that in another video. What's next on my list? Okay, in the other rack, the SSL Bus Plus, the best unit that I've ever owned. I think every studio needs to have one of these. Underneath that, I've got the Warm Audio 76 compressor, Very one-dimensional, but that one-dimensional is incredibly nice. Underneath that, the EQP-WA, the Warm Audio Portec copy, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't got on with at all. I am not sure whether it works or not properly, because the results that I'm getting from it are so bad that I think that it must have a problem with it. I bought it incredibly cheap on a whim, second hand, and I thought I'll give it a go, and maybe the person that was selling it sold it because it was broken. But if this is what it's meant to be like, then I'm highly unimpressed with it. At the bottom of the other rack, I've also got the power amp, but I'll come to that in a minute because we are going to come to speakers. In my setup here, I have two sets of speakers, the Yamaha HS7s, and I've got my trusty old Alesis Monitor 2s, which I've got many pairs of because they're very old and I'm worried that one day one of them is going to die. So I've actually got 3 or 4 pairs of those. That's how much I like them. And I've got the power amp at the bottom of the right hand rack, which is the Alesis RA100. I've also got the IK Multimedia Arc Studio for room correction. I want to get another one of those so that I can switch between the two speakers without having to do anything on the computer and change profile, which does get quite annoying after a while. Headphone wise, I've got some AKG 702s, I think they are. They're really nice. I've got some Sennheiser HD25s, and I've also got some Sony noise cancelling headphones for a sort of consumer listening thing. I also use them on the plane. They're really nice, but they do get used in the studio. Of course, it wouldn't be a studio if I didn't have loads of acoustic foam all around the place, randomly placed, making it look like I know what I'm doing. So mainly if I'm tracking here, I'm doing guitar, I'm doing vocals, or I'm doing keyboards. If I'm doing guitar, it goes through this IK Multimedia Z-Tone DI, and that's also permanently running in line with a tuner, so I can check my tuning without having to mute anything or do anything. Or if I'm doing a bend and I don't want to overbend, I can have a quick look at the tuner. I've got loads of guitar pedals. That would take a whole video in itself, but I've got a whole rack of guitar pedals over there and other things in boxes. So yeah, maybe we'll do another video on those. And of course, I do have a lot of guitars. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I've got a lot of guitars. I'm up to, well, I was up to 70 at one point. I'm now down to 60 something because I sold a few and gave a few away. But yeah, needless to say, you're never going to struggle to find a guitar in my house. I've got some lovely keyboards, a Nord Stage. I've also got a Roland piano. I've got a Korg synth, the X5D, which again was a nostalgia thing because I had one of them at Rogue Studios and one came up on eBay. It was 100 quid, so I thought, why not? And I've also got a Roland controller. It's got lots of knobs on it, so you know you can use it for automating things and whatever and record in the MIDI. Right, next on the list is microphones. The TLM 102 that I use for the majority of stuff I'm just doing if I need to grab a microphone and use it for something. So if I am recording a song and I want to whack some vocals on it, then I grab that. If I want to do some acoustic guitar, I grab that. It's because it's always there. It hasn't got its own separate power supply or anything. I can just plug it in, it works. And I find as an all-round mic, also the TLM 102 has 20 dB more headroom on it than the 103. So it can pretty much be used on anything. I mean, Alex was around recording some sax with me not that long ago, and I used it on his sax and it sounded great on that. So yeah, that's my kind of go-to mic for everything. But I've also got a Rode K2 that does have its own power supply. It sounds absolutely fabulous, that mic. And if I really want to record some what I would consider posh vocals, I generally get that mic out because that does sound really good, but not so much on me. I've got to say, I prefer my voice through the TLM 102. Now, I'm not the best singer in the world, which is probably why, but the TLM 102, I don't know, it just sounds more rounded on my voice. Generally on everyone else, I find the K2 better, and on me, I find the Neumann better, but you know, it's a fantastic microphone, the K2. I also love using it on drums. I would like to buy another stereo pair of them to use for room mics, because at the moment I've been using it as a center sort of front mic on the kit, and it sounds phenomenal. It's got so much warmth on the bottom end that it sounds great. So I'd like to have another pair of those just for room mics. What else have I got here? Some D112s, 58s, 57s, 57 betas. I've got some cheapy U87 clones by LD Systems, which sound surprisingly good on guitar amps. That's the best place I've heard them sound, but if you just need a pair of room mics or something like that, you know, they're perfectly decent to put up. Cheap pencil condensers, one of which I've got here set up for capturing me if I'm streaming. They sound all right, you know, again, they're perfectly usable. They haven't got any amazing character or anything like that. I've got this Audio Technica shotgun mic that I'm actually using at the moment to record this, and I really like that mic. It's incredibly directional, and I've been standing halfway back at an arena with a zoom lens, and I've managed to, using a little bit of noise suppression, get really detailed conversation from a long way away. So I mean, it's a phenomenal mic. Dave from the future here with a shaky iPhone footage moment. The real reason I actually bought this mic, I suddenly remembered, was because the windshield over it, when you turn it next to the mic, it makes a sound that reminds me of Thomas the Tank Engine. I've actually recorded acoustic guitar with it so many times because there's something about acoustic guitar in the air that softens the transients in a really nice way, but then you end up with loads and loads of kind of room noise if you move the mic too far away from the acoustic guitar. Yet I find that sometimes in certain situations, not all situations, but using that shotgun mic really gets a nice acoustic sound because you can get far away, let the air do its thing without really picking up a lot of room. So many video topics coming up in this video. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit more philosophical. Why did I do it? Well, the main reason why I did it is, I mean, I started on tape. I had Rogue Studios in London. I was recording on 24-track tape machines, and then I moved to a digital setup. But back in those days, you know, we weren't running many, if any, plugins on the computer. So effectively, my Logic 4.7 setup on a Dell, you know, P2 PC with like 256 megabytes of RAM was basically acting as a tape machine. So I did all my professional work recording bands with my fingers on faders and grabbing real physical EQs. So I think some of it for me is just psychological. I seem to get a better mix when I can just do things and I'm not trying to operate a computer. Okay, I love computers. I'm a computer programmer as well as into audio and video and all of that. I mean, I've got plenty of videos on my channel where I'm coding things, so I'm no Luddite. But when I'm doing music, I want to be doing music. And I found myself spending more and more time just operating a computer. And what happened was I bought a preamp. I bought the Warm Audio 273 preamp, and I had a couple of outboard compressors, and I was running some signals out and kind of processing them out of the box and bringing them back in to fix a few things in my mix. And it just sounded nice. And there was one mix where I went through every single track and just took them out and brought them back in. And it added something that I couldn't really quantify. Now, we know it's kind of saturation. It's fucking up the sound, basically. But it's doing it in such a nice way that it added a character that whatever kind of saturation plugins I was using on the computer and whatever, I just wasn't getting the same results. So in the end, I just thought about it through a tour while I was away for a couple of months touring and thought, you know, I could actually do this. I could buy that bit of gear and buy that. I could buy one patch bay and put it in. And you know how these things go. Within a 6-month space, I had all this stuff, because once you go for it, you've kind of got to go for it, which you'll see later where my end plans when I get to that bit in the video. So I think another aspect of it is you make decisions. If I get something on the desk and I EQ it and I like it, it's done. I can copy it, I can bounce that back to the computer, or I can bounce out the stems of my mix and just say, well, there we go, that's what I've got to work with. And I'm reducing my channel count each time because I'm processing something through an outboard bit of gear and I'm having to think about what I'm doing and is this the right decision, rather than whacking 5 plugins over something and going, well, if I make a mistake, it doesn't matter because I can come back to it at the end. And again, it just comes back to that way that I used to work. You made decisions and you moved on. And that's what I'm trying to do with this. I'm trying to make decisions and I'm trying to move on because I enjoy writing, I enjoy producing, and I enjoy mixing. But part of that is just the endless amounts of projects that you never finish. So in an attempt to actually finish things, I've bought things that are going to move me psychologically and physically to the finish line. That's the idea. Another reason why I did it is because I really enjoy it, but I don't want to turn it into a job. I had a recording studio that was my entire life for about sort of 13 years. I owned and I ran that place and I worked there as the main engineer for about 8 years of it. And it was absolutely wonderful. I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, I could do videos and videos of the stories that came out of that place, you know, and then some of the multitrack that I've mixed on the videos were recorded there. So, you know, I was really pleased to do it. It was a great period of my life, but I never want to do that again. I never want to have to work with bands that I don't want to work with again. And I know that's going to sound awful, you know, and I'd be tempted to edit this bit out, but I want to do music that inspires me. I want to work with artists that I can actually bring something to. I don't want to be just sitting there going through the process. So I'm kind of building this for me to discover a love of music again. And I'm not going to discover that love of music by operating a computer. You know, I'm just really not. So that's why I did it. And I'm sure I'm going to discover many more reasons as I go on, but you know, sitting here right now with this new setup, I can't think of any better reasons than just trying to bring my love for music back. So I've made a list of all the things that I love about my setup. Uh-oh! This is Dave from the future, and this video has gone on way too long. If you've got to this bit, then you've heard my philosophical rant about why I did it. But coming up in part 2 is what I like about it, what I don't like about it, what I want to do next with it, what I want to buy, and of course my video setup. Sorry for cutting this one short, but actually it was way too long and I've already tested your patience enough. So please subscribe, like the video and all of that, and I will see you in the next one for the final ramblings that was going to be the end of this video. Cheers!